Hello, everybody. Well, I'm just uh, waiting to see get to see if I get the signal that everything's okay for this before I start talking too much. Yeah, I guess it's okay because I didn't get a signal that it's not. You know, um, funny. I have had the internet problem, and it was just fixed a second before I said hello, everybody. Of course, I had backup plan, but um, I wasn't sure how it would have been delayed anyways. Um, and because of that, I have been trying to look at the question that you sent me, and I couldn't because I couldn't even access the questions. Um, so for the first time in last 3.5 years, before I start uh, this live stream, I gave a title to it already, and I put the title up, and that was identity. I don't know, it just jumped into me, and so I guess I'm not answering questions today, and I'm just gonna talk about identity. Well, um, as most of you know, I am not prepared. I don't make any preparation to talk about. That title came less than a minute ago, maybe 2 minutes ago, and and I'm not. I mean, I can talk about identity and go down, or talk about everything and related to identity at the end. But um, these days, uh, the sense of identity for people have been more evolved in daily living. You know, I was watching a movie a couple of nights ago with Emily. It was an old movie, and it was You Got Mail, which I saw it in '98, and I saw it again 2 nights ago. And most of you who know me closely know that I don't like to support any way in corruption and any companies that promote corruption. Of course, corruption to me is not just, oh well, what do you think corruption in political way? I think we are all corrupted to certain ways, and I'm not going to go through corruption now, but um, the ways, you know, the 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 commercialism and greed of living better, more comfortable, and fulfilling what we need, whatever, uh, has made us to support a deeper corruption that uh, we are totally ignorant about. Through that, the reason I'm talking about this, you're just going to find out. I mean, pretty soon I'm going to explain why. Through that, we have been uh, getting what we need through a system of corruption. For example, I don't do marketing because I think to use most marketing medium are corrupted, and if I market myself through those medium, that means I'm supporting those mediums. So that's why I don't do it. And one of the things that I have been against all my life was going to Starbucks and spending money there, because if I spend money in Starbucks, I I would support a corruption that I'm going to explain what that corruption is. Um, you see, coffee used to be just coffee, and people paid $1 for it many years ago. Then Starbucks came and uh, and use it to boost people's ego through a coffee, and a new era of commercialism have been created through Starbucks by how people would pay anything uh, to be manipulated the way they want to be manipulated. And then other companies and everything else copied that model. So $1 coffee became $5. And some of you say, well, it's so big deal, we can afford it. But the problem is that, first of all, coffee is not a Western thing, you know. We adopted coffee as a luxury to have. Coffee more of a Central American and South American way of life, that everybody had access to coffee many years ago. Now, when we buy a $5 coffee, the price of coffee in those countries has become ridiculously more than what it used to be, and some of them cannot afford even have the coffee, which was their basic needs, because we can afford to pay $5 to feel good about it. It's not even about the coffee. It's just about the mental connection that we create about the coffee, and Starbucks have created that using our ignorance. So that's corruption. When a system using ignorance to benefit and make us more ignorant, and that is a corruption to me. So going back to what I was saying, I was watching a movie, You Got Mail, and which is made in '98, and a part of that movie, character Tom Hanks goes to Starbucks, which I saw, wow, '98, and order coffee, then talk about it later, about commercialism, and he's a very smart guy as a character, and saying exactly this, that how instead of $1, people pay $3 at the time, '98, but it's about sense of identity, because they have to make 6 decisions to get a coffee, and that decision they want the size, weakness, whatever it was, I don't know. So then when you make decision, basically you identify yourself. Of course, this is not what he said, but what he said brought the topic right now, today. How Starbucks, for example, has created sense of identity in people that they didn't have before. Many years ago, people identified themselves simply with the drink they have. You know, I'm a gin person, I'm a vodka person, or with the breakfast they had, or with many things, or a football game they choose. They identify themselves, I'm this team, not the other one. Then basketball, or whatever else. And then Starbucks, it was a daily identity that, you know, you people got, or weekly or whatever, that they had to choose who they are and who they are not through a bunch of options. When you have options, you choose this, and that identity becomes stronger. This is, I'm a weak toll or whatever. And then in a very intelligent psychological conditioning, a new name have been given, so you have to know the terminology, and then you feel good. And it's not about the coffee anymore. It's about we pay whatever it takes to feel good. And that Starbucks was the pioneer of proving that. That's why I don't go to Starbucks. Because of that, many people cannot have coffee who they need it. I don't need coffee, and my grandparents didn't drink coffee, and I'm sure your grandparents didn't do it either, because and through this system of commercialism, they have 1%, 2% of the society become excessively wealthy. I mean, 1%, less than 1% become excessively wealthy, and there are people who want to be that 1%. They're supporting the 1%, and they're on the way to that 1%. They think they are, which they're associated to them. Then there's a bunch of other people, like maybe 5, 6%, maybe 5, that they never get it, but they just have a dream of to be that way, but they still support it because they love that dream, even though they're living poorly, but they love that dream. And the rest of the population don't have their basic needs, because everything is supply and demand. When you make a commodity so expensive, there are people who cannot afford to eat it, or whatever, if it's rice or whatever. And it's happened to coffee and everything else, the whole world. But that is the problem that I have with Starbucks and this system of commercialism. But then again, let's go back to identity. What is it that made us to pay much more for things and feel good? What is it that we pay and we support anything that makes us feel good? Being in charge makes us feel good. Choose the right thing makes us feel good. And then you continuously choose the right thing, make you feel good. When it comes to a coffee, you make all kind of choices. You're always right regarding. It really doesn't matter which one you choose, but then you always choose what makes you feel good, and through that, our sense of taste, or good and bad, or whatever, is dissolved in a way that what we choose is always become the best thing. And we taste it better, the things that is always our choice. The mind makes us taste our choices better than something else that wasn't our choice, even if that could be tastier or whatever. But we identify ourselves with that taste, and basically we reject other tastes. That taste makes us to be comfortable, give us comfort, And gradually that taste become a need for our basic existence. As if we don't have that taste, we don't exist, because it's part of our identity. Well, the reason I choose identity, because it's simple explanation in psychology. Everybody want an identity, and in a new society, everybody battle for an identity. But basically, is a form of self-corruption, which some of you are going to be shocked. How is that possible? Um, you see, on a greater scheme of everything, uh, on a spiritual level, I don't like to use that word, but for some of you understand in a certain way, and some of you have allergic reaction to it. I use it anyways for both of you, because I want you to have allergic reaction and I want you to relate to it. The direction is oneness. The direction is connection. The direction of understanding our existence. And identity is not about oneness, it's about separation. It's about knowledge and acknowledgement of your need is different than others, and very specific. Through that, your ego is very happy to be isolated and separated, and you get what you need just for you, especially for you. And that is identity to me. And what it does, battle for identifying ourselves, who we are, is creating layers of conditioning, and layers of needs that we don't have. Is a self-made needs. In order for us to exist in a deeper ignorance, and it's like going backward. Our personal journey, each of us, is about growing wise, becoming getting rid of our ignorances, and gradually finding our ignorances and knowing what we are ignorant about. That is our personal journey. Then there is a trend of a society that resists against this personal journey and does everything opposite. So if the trend some way takes us farther back in where we are going, in a way, we are becoming more ignorant. And the system, commercialism, and your need for an economy to be supported is so important that our individual identity that we don't need to have, I mean, our real identity has been lost into a fake identity. Your basic need of growth or basic need of knowing that you don't have any need have been changed to a need of a bunch of things that you need to eat, bunch of things you're never gonna eat, certain way you're gonna live, certain way you're not gonna, it's become so corrupted that if you look at, compare now to 30 years ago, the options, the choices of everything, the choice of, for example, cell phone and how you deal with it, food, what you eat, what you don't eat, the normal food, the organic food, the good food and the bad food, water you drink, a lot of things. The options now, I can easily say, is you have 30 times more option to choose between what you need to choose on a daily basis or on an annual basis, 30 times more than 30 years ago. And those choices make you separate from other people who have different choices. So then your ego, the create the sense of false needs to support this separation, and we live a life of fulfilling needs that we don't have. I throw a question at you. This is the first time I throw a question here, and I want to let each of you to think for a minute before I talk again. Actually, it's going to be two questions. What is your most important need? And the second one, how do you identify yourself? Think about that, the answer to those questions. Well, I don't know if it was a minute or not. It really doesn't matter. And some of you have had some idea of answering that question, and some of you have no idea. Some of you still in the process. But we can think later about these two questions. Through that time that I was sitting here, I was sending energies to you to support you to become more clear and more simple of the question, which is clarity is what everybody missing these days, because in a world of so many options, different identity, we're also confused of which one is us, which choices serves us better, what is me, what is not me, and and it's not about coffee anymore. It's about many things in life. And it's tough time, and and people who don't feel the tough time, it's just simply they're way behind because they're ignorant about many things, and then whatever. Um, it's like children who don't relate to the bigger picture, and because of that they don't have fear of many things that they have to fear of, or they have no concern about things, and adults you have to concern. So this is a tough time, and through this tough time we question, should we have chosen differently, should we have done differently, and should we have chosen the other options, and there's so much question and so much confusion, which is part of what we go through at this time. And not to have a sense of identity, that you identify yourself with the exact who you think you are, is easier to be in this time. It's less confusion, because just the time guide you to whatever. Having strong sense of identity, it makes it much tougher, because your identity needs to battle for anything that challenges that identity. And basically what you think you need will be challenged for you to realize what you, you need something to exist, and you don't have that, and you still exist. So in some odd way, your needs that created by you, by the way, will be challenged, or is challenging right now, or is challenged right now, to make sure for you that you can exist without those needs, and really you don't need those needs. So whatever need you have will be challenged. It's just what is happening at this time. If you have the need to be happy, if your condition is to be happy, you won't be. If your conditioning, if you need to be healthy, you won't be. If you need to have a good relationship, you don't. If your need is to be able to rely on people, you'll be disappointed. So whatever need that you have, which is, again, I'm saying it's not real need, it's what your condition has been created. You have created those needs. Your sense of identity have created those needs. Those needs will be challenged, and that's how it becomes tough time. It's not like universe is against you. It just universe wants you to become more pure and getting rid of whatever doesn't serve you, which is simply garbage. Your garbage. You know, garbage is not about bad and good. You know, if certain things is not for you, it could be for somebody else. But for you, it's garbage. For somebody else, could be food. So, and it's also more difficult to understand because we have a way of now through the media and the social media, we have created clubs that the norm have become more pronounced. So we compare what is normal, what's not, and what everybody is, what everybody. So we have we have these clubs that we belong to, and also within those clubs, there are other clubs that go against the main club, but again is another club, you know. So which all of it is work based on your sense of identity that sometimes you need to change it or rebel or whatever. Uh, so we constantly in knowing directly or unknowingly indirectly we compare against a norm. We compare ourselves, and we, in our head we say, oh, this is good, and then what is good for somebody could be terrible for you, but we don't relate to that. So in some ways we attract garbage, or we just imagine you eat garbage because to other people is food. I mean, I give you a simple scenario. You know, your feces is food to flies, and what's not for you. In the way we live, we don't distinguish what is feces and what is food. And it's time that universe will teach you to distinguish that. Of course, if if you didn't know that, and you're realizing that you've been eating shit all your life, you get upset with yourself and your ego has problem too, so it's become difficult. But also it allows you to find the food that is for you. So in an odd way, we're all individual, and we have to find what serve our individual self, and in a contradiction way, we have to get rid of our sense of identity. Very oxymoron. Um, because I know some of you are confused now, but as I said, confusion is the best thing that can happen to you. Confusion simply means challenging your belief system. Because basically, our conditioning have a set of a belief system, and whatever information, whatever we see in our surrounding, we see them the way we understand. Understanding simply means supporting that belief system that we have. If what we see, what we hear, doesn't support our belief system, we don't understand. So if we don't understand something, doesn't mean that thing is right or wrong. It simply means whatever that thing is does not support our belief system. And when many things constantly appears that doesn't support our belief system, we become confused, and eventually we question the belief system. So confusion is not a bad thing. Believing that you're one thing and not other, that doesn't serve you very well, but confusion does. It's okay not to understand. If you do understand very well, that might not be as good. But yet, as a normal society, we constantly want understanding, and when we don't understand somebody or something, we just reject them and say, you know what, I don't understand, Abdi. It's not for me. Yeah. Whatever you don't understand is not for you. And whatever you don't understand was never for you, because you always rejected it. Because what you don't understand challenges your belief system and challenges your ignorance, and your ignorance doesn't want to be challenged. Most of us, psychologically, subconsciously, we choose to be more ignorant, that is comfortable, than having challenge of becoming less. Of course, we say that's not true, we want it different, but we don't act that way. How many of you choose something you don't like? You don't. You just choose what you like based on the condition in the past. If you want to be challenged, start choosing things you don't like. Do things you don't like. See what's the difference. Eat things you don't like. Then maybe you can put up hearing things that you don't like, and understanding things that you don't like. You know, I know on my verbal mandalas I have somewhere I said that allow the opposite to be right, something like that. That's exactly what I mean. Meaning that when we grow, or a way of growing is not to have a deep sense of belief system that create a huge boundary around us and what we think is right and wrong. I mean, if we allow wrong to be right, then all it means is that border is diluted, and our sense of identity has been lessened. which is the journey that eventually we have to go. So you can have all conditioning that support your sense of identity, and then eventually you have to give it up. Because bottom line, none of them matters. Bottom line, being individual, we are part of the same thing. And if you look at your individualism through your head, you see identity and separation. And if you go through your heart, you see that individualism is relating to not to conform and with whatever beyond around you, not to conform, and being apart. And that is the sense of oneness. And there are many theories can explain things or whatever, but they're all theories. What matters at the end of the day, at the end of the life, is what theory makes you live more peacefully. You're at peace with yourself, and you emanate peace. Whatever else doesn't matter. If what you need makes you to be at war, it's not worth it. Just take what's given to you and give up the need of the things that you don't have. This is a process that gradually you re-identify yourself. To the level that one day you realize not having an identity is the greatest thing. Because if you can be anything, if anything fits your need, that means you are free from conditioning and you're at one with everything. And if everything fits your need, that means there's nothing you need that you have to provide, you have to focus on. Doesn't matter anymore. You become like a, their car. If I use a car as an example, some cars they need premium fuel, some car you need something else or normal, some cars you need gas, some cars you need diesel. But just imagine there was a car that anything you pour in it is a fuel, which in the past they made some military cars like that. Doesn't matter what you put in. Wow, very adaptable, and and without too much need. Why not? Why not? So I can talk at many levels and go deeper about all aspects of the topic that I just opened, because I explain certain things, but I just explain the topic. I can go through every aspect of your life, how that aspect relates to this topic of identity. And most of you have question about the aspects. How can I deal with this thing? How can I deal with that thing? And the dealing with it is based on who you identify yourself as. If that identity changes, maybe there is no question there, or the way you deal with it is different, and you don't need to deal with anything. You know, we are all constantly trying to deal the side effect of things, and we focus so much on side effect. And we fix one issue that is the side effect of something, and then we end up to another one, and always never ending. Never ending continuous feeling. For example, if you are disappointed about something, let's say about a person, about a situation, about whatever, you want to know how to deal with that situation. And you deal with that situation so you're not so disappointed, but the feeling that you have is disappointment. For example, for you, I mean, for somebody else could be something else. Let's say it's disappointment. And then you deal with something else. Then you create something else that is not the same, but again, it's disappointment. So you have a lifetime of disappointment because you didn't deal with the actual you. You've been dealing with side effect. And for somebody else, the same thing, the situation brings you sad, brought sadness to you, and then you fix the situation somehow, but then another situation does the same thing. So your relationship to yourself and the feeling that you have to situation, your environment, yourself, never changes. Because you have refused to see the source of your conditioning, and generally any situation, any system, any teaching that brings you closer to the source and of that conditioning, you don't understand, you don't like, and you walk away from it. It's simple. Because your conditioning need to be satisfied. Anything that doesn't satisfy it, it's not for you. It's simple. So some of you say, so what's the solution to that? Well, there's no simple solution, but again, start doing what you don't like. accepting what it doesn't make sense and you don't understand. Don't try to understand. Try to adopt a way that you don't understand. You've been living a certain way for so many years. Big deal. Live a different way that you don't understand for 6 months. Stop pointing to the external world that has created your situation. Because you have created your situation. If you say, this is not for me, maybe you just have to try that on to see what that's not for you means. Anything that doesn't support your ego, if you have big ego, you reject. You reject me. You reject this right now. You say, oh, what's garbage talking about? You would. And you have every reason to think this is what bullshit is he talking about. You don't understand. What is he talking about? And you get angry and agitated because the ego doesn't like this. And many of you respect me. Just imagine what you do with other people who you don't care much and they come to whatever, So if there's a finger to point anywhere, point at yourself and question your identity that you're fighting for. That's where the finger goes. Not a government or a society, a president or whatever else. I mean, if you were corrupted in some way, let's say, if you were corrupted in some way, and you're fighting corruption in a politic, let's say, do you think you have the right to fight a corruption because you can see it and while you're corrupted yourself in some way? I don't think so. Of course, you simply say, well, I'm ignorant to my corruption. I just do what I'm saying. But you support that ignorance. And they are ignorant to the corruption too. If you could be ignorant to your corruption, so is every system and so is everybody else. Everybody is the way they are based on a conditioning, based on a system. It's nobody's fault. A killer have become a killer based on certain way of upbringing or society. They become a killer. That's how they become a killer. But of course they have to be responsible. We put them in jail. We do whatever we have to do with that killer. So everybody is ignorant to the impact of what they do to others and some people more or less, and some people in their mind make something terrible, something amazing, or vice versa, in order to support the ignorance that they have, in order to get the need that they have. If that ignorance supports your greed, have more money, can manipulate people for something, well, you believe what you believe that you serve the world and you everybody needs your services and you do whatever it takes to make people benefit. But bottom line is your greed. I can say many other things. And anybody and any situation that point at your greed, you're not friends with, you're not, you make any story that you want to make them terrible, which is okay. But one day you have to rewrite those stories. And as more stories that you write that's a lie, as more rewrite you have to do. Well, all I'm suggesting is start some rewrites now. Not all of it, but I'm sure there's certain things you can rewrite now, because I'm sure in your head right now, in your heart right now, there's certain things that you are on the edge, that you have been questioning. Maybe I should rewrite it. Just rewrite it. But doesn't mean the rewrite is a true. But you gotta start rewrite this to another version, and then rewrite that to some other version. Rewrite till you give up all this. I wanted to give a word to all what. I have so many words in my head, and all of them fit, but it's more. I can. Ignorance was perfect, but simple, thinking you give up all the bullshit, that you create to support your bullshit. We all create bullshit to support the bullshit, to have the identity that we need to have, which doesn't serve us, which goes against us. The identity that we choose to have is our number one enemy. How do you like that? The identity that you have chosen is your number one enemy. Not anything else in the world. That identity. So you can change that identity to another identity, you just get another enemy. Or you can dissolve it all and just be with friends. And you only need one friend, and that's you. And you always have yourself. And you're always accessible when you give up need of supporting the identity that's not you. Wow. I guess I have used my lips and my mouth enough. And no matter how you are, what I've said in an hour or whatever, remember, you're exactly who you need to be, and you're doing what you need to do. And you've never been at fault, and you never will be, and you cannot do anything wrong, and you have never done anything wrong. It's just time that somebody like me has to sit here and tell you to grow to something different. And it's time. I didn't say it a year, 2 years ago. I'm saying it now, because it's time for you to hear it now. Doesn't mean you become different tomorrow, but it's time for you to hear it. And if it's not time for you to hear it, you don't hear it. even though I say. And maybe 6 months later, 2 years later, then you hear what I said today, when it's time for you to hear. I have a moment of sending you love and giving you a hug, holding your hands, and you know, just something came to me. I have recently written, just 2 days ago, I recently wrote a bunch of verbal mandala, and Emily just made one of them, which can be posted next week or whatever. And it says, stop searching to find who you are. Just pay attention to the to whose you're not. I guess it's like that. And now we have that hug